When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The 18 that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Hello everybody, we are live. Rewind to Raw. I am John Pollock, and joining me tonight, he has found his way back to Canada, back into your lives. He is a refreshed Wai Ting.
I'm back. Hello. What's going on?
We missed you.
Oh, thank you very much. I've missed you guys as well. Everybody. Not just you, John, but everybody in the Zoom room, everybody listening right now. Thank you very much. I've had a great honeymoon.
That's great. Were you able to turn everything off, just enjoy a restful week?
I would say for the most part, yeah. I mean, like from time to time, I would still check up on seeing what the news was. I mean, I happen to be away for a really, really busy week. The whole landscape.
What are you talking about? Whole
landscape has changed. We've got a new champion. I mean, NXT has all sorts of different colors attached to it now. Dynamite Rampage is 2 hours now. What the hell? So a lot of stuff has happened. But of course, I want to thank not just you, John, but everybody who chipped in and filled in for us. So anytime one of us is away, including Andrew Thompson, including John Cena, including Kate from Montreal, and including W.H. Park and Scrump and Stank doing a great job filling in for MCU later. But, all of our hosts, I thought, all of our guest hosts did tremendous jobs, like on the particular shows that they would happen to be on. So much so that I can't wait to take my next vacation.
Yeah, look at that.
The shows will be great.
We've got a great roster that was all willing to step up and fill your shoes, and they all did a tremendous job. And it was great to chat with a lot of different people over the last week. But we've got to get way caught up, so we're going to start with SmackDown from Madison Square Garden a week ago Friday.
Oh, and Brother Nate, how could I forget? Of course.
Yes, Nate Milton kicked things off. The Wayless week plus, it really was. So, what was I going to ask you? How much did you kind of scope out wrestling-wise over the past week? Did you go back and watch anything in particular? I know Raw. Actually, I say that facetiously, but I'm sure you did probably at least catch the ending of Raw.
Yeah, I caught all the major moments from the various shows. I caught all of Dynamite. Of course, I caught Dark Side of the Ring, which seemed to be the biggest talking point from the last week. And really highlights, or as much as I can, from all the other shows before I got back here. So I'm pretty well caught up.
All right. Well, we are going to probably be discussing a bit of a Dark Side of the Ring because of some of the news items tonight. But I want to start off with chatting a little bit about what is going on at the site this week. It's very, very busy of what we have going on. And before I forget, we're going to have a bunch of people contributing to the site over the next week. It's a crazy weekend. We are going to have Lucha Blog covering the CMLL anniversary card. We're going to have Karen Peterson, who has been a guest before with W.H. Park, doing the Stardom 5-Star Grand Prix. John Pine, your comrade on Rewind Away recently, doing reviews for GCW Emo Fight on Thursday night. I mean, it feels like 2006.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I guess. Will there be, a lot of sad songs being sung? Will there be like curly, fluffy hair?
I think Marco Stunt is performing at it. And
okay.
You ever heard like him perform?
I have not, no.
Go watch when he was on the what was it called? The Waiting Room with Britt Baker. Was that her segment on Dark?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Go watch it. It will blow you away, actually.
Okay. Wow. Amazing. What an interesting, different idea from GCW.
Yes. Very, very interesting. So, Minoru Suzuki is doing the next night's GCW. I can only hope
he's not going to be
Suzuki.
He's not going to be
Thursday night. I mean, we know he's going to be at Arthur Ashe Stadium on Wednesday, and Thursday night, if he shows up at Emo Fight, dude, I hope there's a documentary on Minoru Suzuki and his American vacation, because this is turning into just what an interesting month that this man is enjoying. This to me probably way more fun than the G1 would be, and maybe less taxing too. I only say that maybe because he is doing some hard matches in here. And
the travel too, all across country like that. It can't be easy for a guy his age. But if he showed up and did some sort of duet, like if Minoru Suzuki showed up with like bangs and like mascara and just joined in on like whatever Marco Stunt was singing, like that would be a dream come true.
He does like the punk version of his theme.
Oh my God. Stop, please.
This documentary could be the Suzuki International Incident.
Oh yeah. That would, it's a banner month for him. Absolutely.
So anyway, lots of reports coming up this weekend. Tuesday, Wai and I are back with Rewind Away number 95. We have made it to 95, Wai. There was a Windows named after this year. It was such a prominent number.
Oh, huge. I believe maybe a Windows that you might even still be on. Is that right, John?
Wai is on me to upgrade my Windows because it does not meet the minimum requirement for his grand plans of where we could be video-wise. So I'm kicking and screaming this move, but I realize I have to upgrade. But here
you are. It's okay. You're on, what is it? 07? Which one are you on?
Windows 7.
Windows 7. Okay.
I mean, they're up to what now?
I don't even know. I'm a Mac guy, so okay. I can't really help you, but it's fine.
This computer has been so reliable, and part of that I do attribute to the pandemic because I haven't had to be traveling with this laptop daily. But dude, I have like everything now going back years because this is the longest a laptop has lasted me.
I understand. I totally understand. It's not a big deal.
We also, so that will be dropping on Tuesday. This is the whole reboot of Nitro with the April 10th, 2000 episode with the return of Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo. I always ask, Wai, have you started yet?
I have started. I feel like I'm going to have to restart again because it was an episode that just moves like a blur, and I'll probably have to at least watch it another time to really see. Yeah.
Insane. Yeah. Okay, it's insane the pace of this. I would love to see the run sheet because it had to be like 5,000 pages.
Man, we complain about these like Dynamites being fast. Like it's nothing compared to at least this edition of this Nitro.
No, this is honestly a show on some kind of hallucinogenic drug. And then we've got all of our G1 shows. So this week, we're going to have 3 G1 shows dropping Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. All Post Wrestling Cafe members will get those shows. It's a value week for all the patrons out there because not only are you going to get those 3 G1 shows, you also get Wai Ting back on MCU later as they tackle episode 7 of 9.
7 of 9. That's right. Yeah, I believe this one episode deals with Party Thor, something to do with Thor. And I believe we might have a special guest, but I have not made contact with that guest yet. So you should wait to find out who that is.
And last thing I'm going to mention is for Rewind to SmackDown this week, AEW has totally messed up our schedule. They have just totally thrown a wrench into our Friday night plans by deciding to do a 2-hour episode of Rampage. So Friday night, we're going to go live at 12:15.
Yes.
Just think about this. 12:15 on a Friday night after watching 4 hours of wrestling. So what we're going to do is we are going to do our live show Friday night. We're going to review the shows. And instead of doing our caller segment on Friday night, we are going to make Sunday's Extreme Rules post show available for all patrons, not just our Double Ice Cap and Espresso patrons. Everybody has access to that show live, and we'll do calls on Sunday after Extreme Rules, which will be ending, well, at least an hour earlier, we hope.
Talk about a value week. Not only are you getting all this G1 coverage, but you will also be getting Extreme Rules live. And we'll also be taking phone calls on that show. So unfortunately, no phone calls this Friday, everybody, but we'll have plenty of time to hear your thoughts Sunday night for all patrons.
All right. So whole schedule is up at postwrestling.com. We got a new Bushby and Thompson's wrestling adventure. UFC 266 on Saturday night will be handled by Phil and Eric. So lots of big stuff this week. Are you excited, Wai, for Nick Diaz's first fight since 2015?
Yeah, actually, a little bit. Sure. I'm very curious to see how he looks.
A rematch from April of 2004 with Robbie Lawler.
Right on. Wow, that should be great.
Crazy. All right, we are going to move on now over to the news, and we are going to be starting with the fallout, the continued fallout from Thursday's Dark Side of the Ring episode covering the plane ride from hell. And we'll start with Ric Flair, who issued a lengthy statement on Monday, and I'm going to go through most of it here. And the statement was posted on his Twitter and stated, "Every person that I've worked with, from my lawyer to my publicist to my wife, has said not to post a response. But I've never run from past behaviors before, and I'm not going to start now. I want to clarify a few things. About 4 years ago, I gave ESPN full access to my life for a 30 for 30 special. They covered taxes, financial issues, adultery, divorces, the passing of my child, and drinking, partying at length. Rory Kampf," who he misspelt here, it is Rory Karpf, who's a very well-known producer of both UFC documentaries and for this 30 for 30 on Flair. So Rory, this is Flair speaking, desperate to matter for another 15 minutes, did an interview about it this morning. And this interview was with Nick Hausman at Wrestling Inc. Flair says, "When Rory's lips are moving, he's typically lying. But one part of what he said was the God's honest truth. Quote, I'd never heard that he had forced someone to touch his genitals," Karpf admitted. "Everything with Rick that was construed as negative, I tried to address in the 30 for 30, his drinking, his philandering, his adultery, his money problems. There's quite a bit, but never, at least in the people that I spoke to, no one ever brought up that he would force himself on somebody. I did hear about him exposing himself, which to me is still troubling, very troubling behavior, and that is addressed in the 30 for 30. This is back to Flair. "I allowed my personal life and the lives of my wife and children to be turned upside down for one reason. Whether it's good or bad, even the really bad, the truth has to matter, even in wrestling. My issues have been well documented over my 40-plus year career. The impact of drinking too much, which nearly killed me 5 years ago, has been told time and time and time again. The reason Rory, or anyone else for that matter, never heard stories of me forcing myself on anyone is simple. It never happened." He has also added to this statement to Wrestling Inc., stating, "To clarify, the quote helicopter, as it was called, is accurate. I wish I could blame it on youth, but it was a case of drinking too much and being inappropriate, and I apologize for that, and have countless times over the years. I made some bad decisions during dark periods of my life, and it is something I've spent a significant part of years I was given by the doctors in 2017 trying to make right. I condemn sexual assault in any way, shape, or form. I could and have written books, as have others, that have covered my transgressions. I've made some terrible decisions, but I've never forced myself on anyone in any way, period." And just to dovetail that is that tonight, at least in terms of WWE and their handling of this fallout, have eliminated Ric Flair's woo from the opening signature of the program. And we are in Canada, so we're obviously not watching the USA Network feed, but I saw from multiple people that the Car Shield ad featuring Ric Flair did air at least once during Raw, which was very surprising after Car Shield had, their ad agency had issued a statement to PW Insider stating this ad campaign would be on pause. So taking all of that, Wait, I just wanted to start off with you because we haven't got to hear many of your thoughts about the actual episode itself. It's a pretty loaded question, just overall thoughts on it, but just specific. This is the one that seems to have generated the most fallout, and this is one that very, very difficult to watch, but also one that has clearly seen consequences after it in terms of, at least for Flair and Tommy Dreamer so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Prior to even watching the episode, I think I had heard a whole lot of discussion coming out of it. And watching it, I completely understand the discussion. I completely understand the concerns and the criticisms and the controversy, even if you want to call it that. It was a very... for me, I think count me in as one of the people who, when I think of the plane ride from hell, I think of things, that were maybe a lot more mischievous in nature and not as horrifying as they ended up being presented in this documentary, through the account of the victim. Something that, was at times kind of portrayed as okay, it's just... These are employees, of a sort of with a locker room mentality, having fun. But it's awfully different when you think about, the effects that fun to some people might have on other people. And it's the power of, I think, this documentary series that continues to shed a spotlight on, victims of things like this. And you see something like this, and obviously something had to be done. Not just, of course, of the people that are being discussed in the documentary, but also of, Tommy Dreamer's unfortunate comments that were very insensitive given the nature of, the rest of the show. I think, whatever has happened between Impact and also Busted Open, had to occur. It seemed like they were right decisions to me.
I agree with that. We should read that Tommy Dreamer put out his statement. Regarding my comments on Dark Side of the Ring, it was never my intention to offend, hurt, or victim shame anyone. I understand my comments were insensitive and could trigger emotions in someone's own personal past. I do not condone sexual misconduct of any kind. I apologize to anyone I offended. From the bottom of my heart, I am so sorry. And on Busted Open Radio, they briefly addressed this on Friday. They stated it was Dave LaGreca and Mark Henry stating that we did not want to ignore this because that could come off as we are condoning it. There was more on Monday's show where it essentially began with Dave LaGreca pretty much just taking the floor and explaining, very clearly condemning Tommy Dreamer, and that he was shocked at what he heard from Dreamer on the show. He is not defending any of his comments, went so far as to say point blank that Tommy fucked up and this will not be tolerated. He is off the show for the time being, and it's unknown how long that time will be. So they have not cut ties with Dreamer, but it sounds very similar to Impact that he has gone indefinitely over those comments, which are they were horrific comments. It's there's really no way to rationalize or explain. They came off terribly. My hope would be him actually hearing the words of Heidi Doyle would put into focus just how awful what he said was.
Well, that's kind of what I was looking for from him in his apology. And I think it's one thing to do an interview regarding a subject without hearing the other side. Maybe his whole perspective of it. It's completely still indefensible, some of the things that he managed to say there. But after seeing the episode, I was at least hoping for a little bit more elaboration on exactly kind of how his words might have came across. But I also understand wanting to be, as brief as possible, maybe when you are doing a Twitter apology such as that. Of course, Ric Flair did not take that same tact, and I kind of feel like he probably should have, because that was a weird apology. It's not. It wasn't even an apology. I guess it was more so just a statement. There
was also no mention of Heidi Doyle either.
Yeah, and one in which he used that space to oddly just talk shit about the 30 for 30 documentary, and it was bizarre, and I definitely would say probably came under against the advice of the people that were warning him not to issue that statement.
Yeah, you can just look at, to me, it's an episode that I think will stay with people for a long time, because to me, we can break this down in the micro, which are the specific allegations and incidents that are listed. There's also the macro view of a culture that we are seeing in action in this documentary, where it's full of H-bombs and this whole boys will be boys culture. And as I wrote about, it's like all these code terms that are thrown around that kind of cover this extremely ugly underbelly that are partying and what is going on. And I think this was like, you can just hear like this, you hear the subject matter speaking about this, like this is relatively normal kind of behavior that is often like done with like comedic effect to it of how hard we party and stuff getting out of control. And I think that it's just this spotlight and just kind of indicates to you that if you are someone that is watching from the outside, I mean, you're horrified by this. And I'm hoping that there's more people now looking at all of this of like what was accepted behavior or just considered, every day, just the cost of doing business was like putting up with this kind of behavior and then moving on.
Yeah. I mean, there's no shortage of these stories that have gone around very publicly, and I mean, this week alone, I think you see old stories about like everybody's favorite backstage initiator, JBL, like still come out. Randy Orton stories are coming back out, of course. And we know a lot about these stories, but I don't think anybody is putting that have put those under the same microscope as what we made today. And that brings into question, like for events that have happened in the past, like what is appropriate punishment, for things that have occurred in the past. What is the public court of approval when it comes to something like that? Even though some of these companies may not hand out any sort of punishment, I mean, ultimately, the public decides a whole lot about whether or not a wrestler is employable in the future, and what really determines that. These are all really kind of more complicated, difficult questions to ask, and every case is different, of course, but. The subject here is Ric Flair, and at the moment, I mean, I don't know how the man can really come back from this, other than, definitely a better statement than what he issued tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to like it's like it was, and beyond Ric Flair, like others, like that were the subject of terrible stories in this, and. I just think if someone was to watch this episode that is not following this industry and they ask afterwards, who was punished the most severely after this? And the answer is Tommy Dreamer. Listen, Tommy Dreamer, I think Impact and Sirius were well within their rights to do exactly what they did. He was not the worst offender in this documentary either.
No, not at all. Yeah. Brock Lesnar is another one of those big names, and unfortunately, I because it's the WWE and because he's I don't know, in such a big role as an on-screen character, I have to err on the side of cynicism and think that not much is going to happen to him. Unfortunately, what any other names from the documentary that you think would be discussed, or at least, whose careers may be impacted?
I mean, well, when you look at it, I mean, certainly for those that are going to go back and look at the lawsuit, I mean, the lawsuit paints, Dustin Rhodes in a very negative light. Now, his allegations were not brought up, nor was the name of the other flight attendant that was part of that 2004 lawsuit with Heidi Doyle. But those are the ones you're looking at. It's like the Scott Hall, his allegations are outlined in the episode as well. Again, it comes down to the pressure that any individual or company feels they are outside of this.
Dustin's case is really interesting because, I mean, he's in a very large role right now in AEW. I mean, featured pretty prominently, I believe, like on tonight's edition of Dark, he was featured.
QT,
and has a big role backstage in that company. And, this is an audience that is very in tune with things like Dark Side of the Ring. How will they react to him the next time he comes out on TV? He is also somebody who I think, has much more of a real well-known comeback story, who, I would hope would be a very different person today than he is back then. But that communication needs to occur between, the people, discussing these stories and the audience. And, it's of course, like, every person has the right to say, well, like, it's personal for me, I don't have to discuss it with the audience. But if you care about your public image, like, the communication with the people that, are going to be buying your tickets is very important.
One, just other thought I had was, just actually looking at the roster that was on that particular tour. And one person who is on that plane is Eddie Guerrero, who had been back in the company for a month. This is a recovering addict that has just come back to the company after getting clean and doing that indie run. And he's on that flight.
Being stuck on the tarmac for as long as he was with reportedly 3 carts of free-flowing alcohol. I can't imagine the torture that would be, for him and Scott Hall.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the list of offenses, and putting an Eddie Guerrero in that situation is not going to be the most pressing. But I mean, that just kind of to me just puts a spotlight on all of this, that even a situation like that is like, what a horrific workplace to be placed in. You're a recovering addict and you are in this environment on this chartered flight. It's a horrible part of WWE's history. And it's because that so many people were willing to speak on the record about it, that these stories are out, and most prominently, Heidi Doyle willing to be able to speak about it, because without her, I don't think you could go forward with this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I wonder like how willing she is to maybe continue to do future interviews about something like that, about something like this, of course. It's, her perspective is obviously very important, and man, but it's a painful thing to continue to bring up. So I would understand if she wouldn't.
So we're going to move on from that, but I do encourage people to also listen to Kate from Montreal, who I thought was fantastic on Friday's show, discussing a lot of the key points coming out of Dark Side of the Ring, and we have put that available for free both on our YouTube and on the Post Wrestling feed if you want to hear that discussion from Friday. Some television viewership notes. SmackDown on Friday did 2,243,000, a 0.58 in the 18 to 49 demo. They were down 6 and 11% respectively. That was from the big Madison Square Garden show the week prior, and were second for the night behind Big Brother on CBS. Are you caught up on Big Brother?
I'm not. Sad to say. I'm also very sad to say, though, that I am caught up on Bachelor in Paradise, which is our latest guilty pleasure.
Oh, you know what? I actually was flipping through the channels and stopped on that the other night, and I can understand how it grabs people. And it was like quicksand, and then I just quickly changed the channel. I'm like, I'm not falling.
It is so awful.
Trap.
It is so awful, John. But you know what? It is. I mean, we're speaking about maybe how people's public image, and it's a wonderful study on public image, because like what happened, like there's just the big thing that just happened on the show where it resulted in like, I don't want to get into it with you, man, but like I can get into it with you off air. But it resulted in one person basically losing like 100,000, 200,000 followers, and another person. Like there are websites that track this data after a show, how many followers this person got, how many followers this person lost. It's fascinating.
Do you know that I'm probably not breaking news to anyone out there, that like I have none of this tracking stuff, that if someone unfollows me, like people get notifications that you're unfollowing them. I was like, man, I can't even like unfollow in peace now without someone being aware of it.
You just got to unfollow everybody, John. That's, like
believe
Thanos. Snap.
It's actually like therapeutic when I hit the unfollow button on people, because it's like I've got such a high number. It's like I'm losing weight. You know what I mean? I kind of get like a thrill out of unfollowing people.
Okay. Yeah. Well, just do it, quietly, late hours of the evening, so people might not know.
I've made a pact with myself that if someone ever calls me on unfollowing them, I'm going to be brutally honest and tell them you're not up to snuff anymore. Like you're not delivering what I followed you for. You've slipped.
Sometimes I think about it, like what if instead of just like messaging people, I suddenly called them? Like how about for every person you follow, you ask for their phone numbers, and then that way they won't be offended. In fact, they'll feel like, they were upgraded. Your connection is even closer now, and you give them a call. Not only do you give them a call, you call them at 3 a.m. in the morning, and just be like, hey, you wanted to be friends, right? You wanted me to follow you.
Anytime I call you, you answer like it's got to be a mistake. Hello?
Oh, yeah.
You're always like stunned that I called. I actually pocket dialed you last week, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Yeah.
I apologize for that.
Don't. Please. I always welcome it. It's honestly, it's more of a preferred form of communication whenever it happens. As provided, neither of us is busy. But it's like, man, like looking at my screen more and more is just like something I want to do less.
Rampage did 642,000 viewers and a .28 in the demo, down 4% in viewers, up 6 though in 18 to 49. They were second on cable behind college football. This was their lowest viewership of the 6 episodes, but not lowest 18 to 49. And I guess all questions are, this is such a big week way for AEW numbers. I think Wednesday is going to be a monster. Friday, it's going to be big. And the question to me is, the 2-hour experiment. I do not think this is going to be one and done. I think the number is going to do very healthy on Friday. And I think that only keeps the door open for more 2-hour experiments. And believe me, I am ready for a world where Rampage will become 2 hours. And I do not want to see Rampage move to 2 hours selfishly as a viewer, but that is the lifeblood of like what they are doing here.
Selfishly as a reviewer, yeah. I mean, that would be awful, but as a fan of AEW, I really don't think it's the worst thing, especially because they have a roster now that can really justify the amount of screen time for a 4-hour week. I think to me the test is whether or not 10 to 12 is viable for most people on a Friday night, because I think the more likely scenario might be 9 to 11.
So I was talking to somebody in the industry today, and this came up, and I asked them, I was like, do you do 10 to midnight or do you do 9 to 11? And they immediately said, you do 9 to 11. And I think it would be a very interesting experiment that you're not touching SmackDown in viewers, not even close. What you are doing, though, is like you look at this growth curve for AEW, and I think it's just slowly and surely it's sending people to Rampage, and over time, somewhat building up that first hour. I think it would be an interesting experiment, even though we know that it would obviously be noteworthy because it would be our first head-to-head of WWE main show with AEW.
Yeah. And the biggest show, it's not just NXT. This is their Friday night Fox show, talking about, the second hour, presumably with like the biggest events. I mean, and WWE will take that as a fight. They'll stack those hours. But if I'm AEW, like it still might be a fight worth fighting.
And if you are doing, like, again, you take out the fact it is network versus cable, that if Rampage can have a very healthy audience and you can go to say, hey, the show that's getting $205 million a year, we are doing X% of that on cable with the big giant. That's going to get a lot of attention. And the whole idea is AEW pulling itself up to close to WWE levels of television rights.
Absolutely. Exactly. Bottom line is, first of all, production wise, I don't think it'll cost them anything more. They already have all the stuff that's necessary there. What I'm not familiar with the TNT schedule, but what exactly are they airing in that slot instead?
Remember, this will be TBS come the new year.
Sure, even so, TBS. I don't know if it would. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but like I'm guessing it's probably not doing as good as Rampage is right now. So even a Rampage going up against Fox, I think would probably stand a decent chance of going up against it. And ultimately, is that 10 to 11 hour going to be better or worse with that hour lead-in?
Speaking of AEW, they made a very well-received announcement today that people were very excited about. They are partnering with the Owen Hart Foundation, entering into a relationship that states here that they are collaborating to honor the legacy of late wrestler Owen Hart, a beloved figure in the professional wrestling community and beyond. This collaboration includes launching the annual Owen Hart Cup tournament within AEW, which will see the winner receive a cup known as the Owen, as well as the production and distribution of unique and original Owen Hart merchandise, including specified retail goods, as well as the upcoming AEW console video game, and incorporates opportunities to develop Owen Hart action figures through AEW's partnership with Jazzwares, apparel, posters, and additional collectible merchandise. And it is something where, I mean, Owen Hart has been a figure that Martha Hart was very open about this in her media tour last year around the release of Dark Side of the Ring, that there had been, I thought, a very unfair characterization of Martha Hart as someone that wants Owen Hart's legacy to be put under lock and key. I think that was far from the reality. We saw that when she very much embraced when the George Tragos Luthez Hall of Fame honored Owen and she endorsed that. It was a case of, I am not working with the company I hold responsible for my husband's death. And I think it was a WWE issue. And when she was on Jericho's podcast last year, stating as much that if New Japan wanted to do something, I'd certainly be open to that. I think that Martha Hart did not have reservations about something like this happening and did a deal with Pro Wrestling Tees. And this represents, I think, a significantly deeper deal. And I think it has a lot of people intrigued because of just like a genuinely unanimous praise for an individual in Owen Hart.
It's absolutely wonderful news, and news that I feel like couldn't have come soon enough. The fact that it's not just some sort of co-promotion endorsement deal, but the fact that we get a wrestling tournament centered around the legacy of Owen Hart, that to me is the most exciting thing. There are a million tournaments out there, but I think part of the reason why you do them is to continue to bring up the names of people who deserve it. And Owen Hart to me is somebody who will always be remembered for his King of the Ring win. I hope every year we really kind of get a chance to have all that. But like, credit to Martha for acting, by her wishes and standing by her ground this entire single time. I would love to hear Brett's take on all this, if he has said anything yet. I think, he, for the longest time, has wanted Owen to be a part of this Hall of Fame, the WWE Hall of Fame and whatnot, for the reasons of keeping his memory alive. Well, this keeps his memory alive. And, Martha doesn't have to go towards the WWE to do it. I
have tried.
Okay.
But it certainly brings up the natural question, is that when you do this first Owen Hart Cup, I mean, to me, number one, I think we're going to see Martha on a wrestling program. Mm-hmm. And I think Brett would be, like, Martha and Brett, they have certainly had their problems over the years, but I think this would be something that I think Brett you would think he would be invited for something like this. And if Martha is okay with that, I think the idea of those two presenting it to the winner is a perfect idea.
I would love to hear more of Martha's takes on it too. And I'm really curious to know, like, how much of, we keep going back to this Brody Lee thing, with both CM Punk and Daniel Bryan in their decisions to sign with this company. And I have to wonder whether or not their handling of the Brody Lee situation might have influenced her in any way, because this is a company that is able to, we've seen, pay tremendously honorable tribute, to the people who have passed. So I'm certainly curious to see what the on-screen presentation will be for this tournament.
And just a few last notes here. Impact has announced they did their Victory Road show that aired Saturday. And at the end of the night, Christian Cage retained the title against Ace Austin. And then Josh Alexander came out to invoke Option C. And he will challenge Christian in the main event of Bound for Glory, October 23rd in Las Vegas. And I think that's an awesome main event that Impact has for Bound for Glory.
Do we get a title change?
If they are confident in Alexander's status, yeah, I would do it. That would be the guy.
I think so too. Like, just even as a very casual Impact viewer, he's the guy who I hear the most buzz about, who has yet to, win the big one. And he seems like a great choice.
And Wednesday's lineup for Dynamite Grand Slam at Arthur Ashe Stadium, Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson. Where does this go in the show?
Oh, man, it has to main event Dynamite, don't you think? It is not main eventing the actual live event. That'll be the lights up match. But
yep.
It has to main event Dynamite. Don't you think
so? I think so. Unless they want to just start off with something crazy. But I think it headlines. And I guess your options are Danielson winning, time limit, because I don't see Omega winning this.
Yeah, interesting. It's another interesting question. Do you give Bryan the Omega win with Paige still kind of lingering around? You already gave it to Christian, didn't you? So I guess it's not as big of a deal. I'd probably have Danielson win, but a time limit draw would be would do the trick too.
I think it's going to be, there's so much riding on this week. It's going to be the biggest crowd in AEW history. I think this lineup on Wednesday has the ability. I don't know if they're going to break that 1.4 million number that they did, but this is a lineup that, this is this to me is the biggest number you're going to be able to pull. I don't know how many cards you can put together of this level with, it could be over 19,000 people there Wednesday night. Cody Rhodes and Malachi Black, Britt Baker and Ruby Soho. How good was that segment on Friday? Did you see the promo battle?
Yes, I did. It was absolutely fantastic. It was exactly, I think, what Ruby needed to really kind of cement her status in AEW as somebody different from who she was before.
MJF and Brian Pillman Jr. and FTR against Darby Allin and Sting.
All right. Sign me right up.
Big card. Okay, we move on to Raw from the PNC Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina. And as I mentioned, the signature without the woo that they have taken out.
I'm honestly surprised they kept that in there. I mean, as long as they have, you know, I mean, Flair was out of the company, but I guess they still wanted to pay respect to the man. And now that's out the window.
Which was interesting because we got a direct reference to it when the crowd started wooing during the Charlotte Alexa Bliss segment, and they did acknowledge it, which seemed to be more they were reacting to the crowd rather than something they were expecting. So we got the big introduction from Big E, reunited with the New Day for the first time since last week. And we got the championship celebration. You deserve it. This man seemed genuinely moved by the "you deserve it" chants. And he thanks all the fans, even the ones that said New Day sucks. He forgives them. He thanks those beneath the heavens and one incredible friend above as the audience starts chanting for Brody Lee.
That was really nice. You know,
very cool moment.
Yeah, it wasn't a chant that like was caught on by the whole crowd, but I mean, those who knew, and that was really sweet.
And then he says, we're going to make the Bloodline. We're going to send them packing. So they come out. They note this is Reigns' first appearance on Raw since 2019. Both hold their titles in the air, and we're starting things off with the 6-man tag. So we get right into things. It's a 13-minute match, and they work up to Big E and Roman Reigns being tagged. Dude, people were getting up to their feet. They saw this as a big showdown, and Big E starts throwing him around with belly-to-belly suplexes and gets stopped with a Uranagi. Superman punch gets caught, another belly-to-belly. Big ending is stopped. Kingston gets sent over the top onto the Usos. And then Xavier Woods gets tagged, and he lands a super kick on Reigns and gets a near fall. Lashley runs down, spearing Big E, attacks Kofi, and Xavier is distracted by this, turns around, and Reigns spears him for the win in 13 minutes and 4 seconds.
Great atmosphere for this match. You know, it was really electric in that arena, and this crowd saw this opening 6-man as a big deal. It was, for me, the biggest takeaway was the gauge of this audience's interest in Big E versus Roman, and as you mentioned, they were standing for it. You know, oftentimes in WWE, when you have guys win their first championships, it's like, you know, the champions that the company is trying to push versus the champions that the crowd really wants. And Big E is a champion the crowd has wanted for a long, long time. And not just that, but, you know, he has a size for it as well, so that when he stands up next to a Roman Reigns, people look at it as a bit of a dream match scenario, despite the fact that Big E hasn't necessarily been booked all that strong up until this championship win. But the fact that these two are standing toe-to-toe from each other and this crowd was like salivating for it is a fantastic sign that they are ready to see him as a leading man. So that was very satisfying to see. And the match itself, I thought, was satisfying enough, you know, for a TV match.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one takeaway from these last couple of weeks, it seems all the focus is on TV. Extreme Rules, to me, was not a huge factor on this show. This did not feel like a go-home show. This felt like this is the show.
It's on TV first, Crown Jewel second, and then Extreme Rules.
Yes, that's your chart. Afterwards, Lashley speared Roman, which I kind of liked that they did this spot because it does keep something with Lashley and Reigns to, well, what my assumption was, okay, well, Big E and Lashley is going to get set up for this pay-per-view on Sunday. I'm sure that is going to get set up, but we did not get that announced on Monday. In fact, we had Lashley get beat later in the night, but we will get to that because we've got a one nice show to book. And then Big E gets speared through a barricade on the floor. And Lashley complains to Pearson DeVille about the cash-in. He was hurt, and he can beat Roman and Big E, no problem. MVP, they note, is out indefinitely after an RKO that was so devastating way, this RKO sent MVP all the way to Riot Fest in Chicago over the weekend. With Damian Abraham.
Took a photo with Damian Abraham even. So, you know what? Music gives you magical healing powers, I think.
Yes. Riddle and Orton were in the locker room. We talked about Spotify playlists. Orton likes the headphones. Riddle sang his theme. Randy's having a match with AJ. This is the best part about Way. When you miss a week of Raw, they're going to do the match multiple times. So you didn't miss Eva Marie and Doudrop. Because last week, squash win for Doudrop to run it back. This time, instead of 2 minutes, they went 1:19 with a running crossbody by Doudrop after Eva cut a promo on her, calling her a mess. And girls like you can never be a woman like me.
Well, I probably should have taken this week off too, because I have a feeling we're going to see it again next week. This exact same scenario here. So, this feud will not feel complete to me until something permanent is put on the line. Whether it be Eva Marie stating she'll never face Doudrop again, or
Doudrop gets to name Eva Marie.
Ooh, love it. What would she name her?
I
don't know, Poo Drop or... I'm sorry. I'm just getting back, everybody. I'm
trademark.
Suffering a bit of sunstroke. But I will say, from the sounds of this, it sounded like
Sunstroke and Doudrop.
Oh, sunstroke. I love it. Okay. Sounds like the fans were reacting well to this. I think they have...
I think Doudrop's got a catchy theme that the audience seems to be into, and she is very good in this role.
They want to see her squash Eva Marie.
Yeah, and I think they're just going to keep doing this. It does seem like Doudrop is benefiting more. Eva Marie, to me, just feels as an in-ring performer, there's nothing to do. There's nothing left.
Well, I suppose, yeah, after the storyline. You got a lot of use out of her bullying Doudrop and then having Doudrop, do the series of squashes. But beyond that, I'm sure there are plenty of stories they can write for her.
Then Big E demands Lashley and Reigns. Pierce and DeVille just have to stare there and think about what they're going to do. Then Heyman comes in, and wouldn't you know it, they are making a triple threat for tonight. Big E, Roman Reigns, and Bobby Lashley. So, 18 to 49s. You're going to love this main event. You're not going to want to tune in anywhere. This was, what did you think about this matchmaking?
It's obviously a really big match. It felt like a pay-per-view caliber match that I thought they were going to maybe even do, I guess on one of their upcoming shows. Well, if one of them, I guess Roman's taken up for both of them. So what am I thinking even? But it's a really big match, and I think given their current patterns for booking TV, it made sense that they were going to give something so big. The question is
this is where the big matches are going to go. For your non big pay-per-views, including Saudi Arabia, you're bulking up the TV. This is you are getting bigger television shows in light of this AEW success. And to a degree, Monday Night Football. I think this is very reactionary.
But can you tell me the strategy of announcing it midway through the show rather than maybe the week before?
No, I think that's a big issue, is that the Bloodline and New Day, to people, yeah, that's a great idea of a destination, but you're giving it to us before you've taken us on the journey to get there. And I don't think you're maximizing the match. I could tell you right now that... Bryan Danielson and Daniel Garcia. That'd be a fun match. And you could do it on 2 hours notice. Or you could build it up for a couple weeks.
There has to be some strategy though. Because just like last week, it was trying to get people to stick around throughout the entire show to watch that Big E cash.
And it worked. They grew throughout the show last week.
Now, do you see the same, do you think they're doing the same thing by announcing midway through the show that you're going to get this 3-way? Is there still that, do you get any stickiness from an announcement midway through the show like this?
We're going to find out. They did this. This was around 8:45 that they announced this big match. And I do think they have a big confidence on, if it gets out on social media, it's going to grab everyone. And AEW, they do that to a smaller degree where they put out most of their card the week out. And usually we get a couple announcements that trickle in throughout the week and they rely on social media for that. But you always go off the air of an AEW programming knowing what your, at least a few of the key matches are for the following week's episode.
Right.
Randy Orton versus AJ Styles. We know they were noting there were several Pitbull references for AJ Styles. That felt like 2016 all over again.
Oh, we didn't mention maybe the biggest news of the day. Keith Bearclaw Lee. Bearcat, sorry. Yes. Bearcat Lee. Yes. So in the dark match, it was Keith Lee, and he came out announced as Keith Bearcat Lee.
Trying stuff out, I guess. Bearcat Right tribute.
Yeah, sure. I mean, now it's
in fairness, I was thinking over the last few weeks, what is Keith Lee missing? And I settled on a nickname. That's what is holding the man back.
Well, I think not only that, now you got to go the full way. He's got to come out in a Bearcat costume. He's got to purr or meow or whatever bears do,
I'm not going to pay money to see Keith. Keith is the guy that fixed my air conditioner last weekend. I want a bear.
Listen, we make fun of it all we want, but listen, if it results in a push for the guy, okay, fine, whatever. I'm sure he'll take it. At least he gets to keep Keith Lee.
For now.
For now, yeah. Bearcat Lee. I guess that's what you'll eventually get.
Oh my God. Well, we'll find out. Omos gets ejected, and he laid out Riddle. This turned into a very entertaining match between the two. AJ worked on the knee, chop blocking it, and Randy sold it, landed a power slam. There's a tornado DDT by AJ. That gets blocked. Orton got busted up around the left eye, and then Styles hit a cabrata. Goes for the phenomenal forearm, but instead sees Riddle there and goes for a PK off the apron, stuns Orton, and then fakes him out. And as he's trying to go for the RKO, Styles pulls up. So we got some gamesmanship from these two. But then Orton just kicked him and hit the draping DDT. So he outsmarted the Pitbull. The crowd popped, RKO, and he won in 14 minutes and 58 seconds. And then he called out Minoru Suzuki for... No, I'm kidding.
At Emo Fest. Is that what it is?
Emo fight.
Got it. Yeah. Well, that's not happening there, unfortunately. But, this was a really good match. I love the finish of them playing off of their prior matches with the RKO off of the phenomenal forearm. It had a lot of time, it felt like, but I don't think this ever dragged or felt slow to me like many Orton matches may. I thought it was a really good TV match.
I enjoyed it a lot. It was a fun match. The crowd was very much behind Orton as a babyface, and AJ is in a role where it's like, I don't see him moving up, but I also don't see him moving down, and he's sort of in a Kevin Owens role on Raw. Like, they'll plug him in. They have confidence in this guy talking. He can work as a heel. If they need him as a babyface, he could do that too. But I think, his prime objective is, Omos.
Yeah, it's to help Omos, and it's to help any sort of babyface get a big win at the moment. And, if you're a fan of AJ, you probably want to see him as champion. But for the time being, they just kind of look at him as sort of this utility.
Nia Jax versus Shayna Baszler. The match begins and Nia is yelling that Shayna was nothing without her. Shayna yells back, but she's wearing her mouth guard, so you couldn't hear anything that she was screaming. It sounded ridiculous. So after the Charlotte Flair match of a few weeks ago, the disaster, now all of Nia's matches, we are to watch them under the guise that they could turn into... they could fall apart at any minute and turn into real fights. So Jax is unloading on her in the corner. Now it's just like, it's getting ugly. And Baszler comes back, nailing knees from the tie clinch, and then hits these big knees, goes for the Kirifuda clutch. It's broken, and Baszler gets slammed to her back, but she's got the Kirifuda clutch locked on. Nia screams she can't breathe and goes out cold in 2 minutes and 19 seconds.
I was surprised by this, First of all, I thought the match was actually compelling, surprisingly. Despite how brief it was, I thought it told a good story.
Brief was the reason this worked really well. And it was a surprising end too, because I think if you were to envision a 2-minute dominant win, you'd be expecting it to go the other way. And this seemed, this was one of Shayna's more like notable presentations on Raw.
Absolutely. You know, it started off like with Nia basically like asserting that, hey, I was the leader of the team. I was the dominant one. I was carrying you. And she established herself as such. But then Shayna gets pissed off and you realize Shayna's been the one that's been holding back. And she just destroys Nia here. And I was really surprised by that booking because like throughout all their tag team matches, I mean, Shayna was the one that was taking all the falls. So here, seeing her booked as strong as she was, beating Nia Jax, somebody who they protected really well in the past, was surprising to me. It tells me that they're going to go ahead with Shayna as a dominant threat, at least I hope. But then the post-match has me like really kind of like wondering what the babyface heel dynamics were. So why don't you take us through that, John?
Well, I just wanted to state that this match felt like it was mapped out of UFC 1. Or something where you had like the person that actually had some experience with Shayna playing Hoist, and then Nia Jax is like the fighter that got some like magazine cred and is coming in. She's an expert in backyard jiu-jitsu threats.
Yeah.
It's a modern art that no one has ever heard of, but she's an expert in it with 500 victories to her name, and she just gets rampaged by the person with some actual martial arts skill in Baszler here. And it's a quick, fun fight that just ends in 2 minutes.
It was realistic. Like I like to believe in a real fight, the person with with the veteran MMA background in Shayna Baszler would actually be able to do this to Nia Jax. So I found it very satisfying.
And Baszler continues the attack, kicks out Nia's arm, and puts her hand into the side of the steps and kicks it. Jax is selling her wrist, and then she turns the elbow onto the steps, and she hesitates. It's like she's conflicted to doing this, but she commits to it, stomps the elbow. Nia Jax, I'm going to say, was fantastic. She was screeching like her arm was shattered. And Baszler, they have the look that she does feel remorse, but this was necessary. I actually was very impressed with this segment because I thought this would be just awful. And I thought they actually did something much more compelling and something with Shayna Baszler that I'm sure I will be laughing at myself in 4 weeks when we look at where Shayna Baszler is. But tonight, I was optimistic that this seemed like a real push for Shayna Baszler coming out.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. I thought this closing segment was great. And I'm also at least a bit more optimistic with Shayna's booking from this point forward because they booked her so strong here. You know, she destroyed Nia, destroyed her in the match, and then destroyed her arm afterwards. Now, like, what I am curious about is, okay, clearly, like, Shayna's going to be the heel in this, right? Does that mean that they are going to, like, is this the start of a Nia babyface comeback? Because I don't know how all that's going to go.
Yeah, it won't. It won't go well. But Shayna as your bloodthirsty villain, I have more confidence in that. And if we have...
Hey, not literally, okay? We don't need Vampire Shayna.
Oh, that's right. They did that already. And she escaped with her character intact with the Alexa, that brief interlude.
Well, we'll see. I mean, they're probably holding on to that one for later.
We have a new tag team. Well, a reunited tag team of Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo. The cousins are back together, Way. No team is stronger than family. Garza says we're the most handsome, talented, and charismatic stars in WWE. And they're taking on the flavor of last month, Mustafa Ali and Mansoor, who I felt so bad for these guys. Like this was so clear that this is our new team we're in front of, and this is the old team. And I thought that these two would at least get like a significant run up to the Saudi Arabia card, like going for the tag titles or something. But this just felt like we're putting these two on the back burner and we're going with Garza and Carrillo, who I thought had a lot of chemistry together. And I really liked this pairing in this match. This was a very good 3-minute match.
It was a great little sprint, lots of big spots, like no lull in action. It felt like, you know, something you would probably see on 205 Live if condensed to like a 3-minute match. But I I don't know if like I don't think this is the last we'll have seen of like Ali and Mansoor. I have to believe that Mansoor is going to have a pretty decently sized role in Crown Jewel. He has to. Like this is the most prominent spot he's ever been on the main roster. You know.
But
so
what does that mean? Going for the tag titles?
It's a good question. You're right. Yeah. And will they book him as like a competent babyface?
And that doesn't even work with like Riddle and Orton, at least if you keep the titles on them. You don't even have like a big heel team, like unless you go back to AJ and Omos. I do agree. I'm sure they'll
tournament. King of the Ring.
You know what? That could be his placement.
Yeah.
So anyway, this match, Mansoor lifted up Ali for this double foot stomp, and then Mansoor got drilled into the barricade. And Ali gets posted by Garza. He screams at Ali, and we get this Carrillo applying this Muda lock, and it's followed by a sit-out drop kick by Garza as they got the pin on Ali. But I thought that Garza and Carrillo, not like we know what we're going to get in the actual match, and they didn't have a whole hell of a lot of time, but just like their presence and their heel mannerisms, especially for Carrillo, who has not been in that role in this company, I thought they had like a lot of charisma together.
I'm excited to see Humberto Carrillo with a bit more of a heel edge and a bit more of a heel slant. I mean Garza has it, but he's really been portrayed as just a goofy comedy guy for a long time. So these two being a serious tag team threat, I want to see it. I think they probably need somebody else to like be a bit more of a permanent mouthpiece, even though Garza can speak. I don't know if like we have that serious like heel promo out of either of these two. So I wouldn't like be opposed to seeing somebody attached to them to make them feel that more complete of a team. But it's nice to see another team on board. And I don't think it's the last we've seen of Ali and Mansoor. I'm assuming we see this match at least 3 more times.
Minimum. Yeah. Karrion Kross did like the identical promo from last week. He's going to pulverize everybody. Nikki and Rhea Ripley come out and they promote Connor's cure. And Ripley, like, obviously got like very choked up about this because Nikki pretty much just had to like whisper the words to Ripley to get through this. And then they dedicated the match coming up to the kids, which was a clear sign we were not going to see Rhea Ripley and Nikki Ash come up short here.
Like, it's hard to tell whether or not she like got emotional or she legitimately like forgot. But in either case, like, I think, you know, the effect came across that this was like something serious and this was just a big babyface moment for these two.
And the crowd was very, and the announcers were like very respectful too. It wasn't, you know, whether she was lost or actually caught up in the moment. Tamina and Natalya versus Rhea Ripley and Nikki Ash, i.e. not Shotzi Blackheart and Tegan Nox, for the tag team championship. There was a heart attack onto Nikki. Ripley made the save, and then Jimmy Smith notes Ripley allowed one save. That was her one save, which is one of those unannounced WWE rules that actually exist, but they never ever say it. And this time they did, that technically you're allowed one save.
I've always heard that, but I never remember to count and call them out on it. Like, is that...
This is literally one of the only times I've heard it on the actual broadcast.
Somebody out there, please go back to every match and point out a time when this was not the case. Come on. It feels way too low a number.
Yeah. I look forward to all of those updates.
Okay. Just send them to me. Don't send them to me.
Send them to me. You guys don't know every single line that's been used in WWE programming history. It was stated in 1994. Ripley is selling on the floor, hits a cannonball and the riptide on the apron as Nikki counters Natalya with an inside cradle and pins her. This tag title match went all of 2 minutes and 32 seconds, and Nikki and Rhea Ripley are crowned your women's tag team champions, and thus the Tegan Nox Shotzi Blackheart 3-0 record out the window. It doesn't matter anymore. We have new champions.
Well, hopefully they get a rematch or they get the first match. You think? I don't know. The whole, like, you know, Raw and SmackDown back and forth sharing of these tag titles has always been super awkward. It's tough to build feuds with both sides, and they don't respect these titles enough to, like, dedicate a focused amount of time anyway. So I can't really say I'm that optimistic about this run, John. You know, it was a nice little babyface moment for these two to kind of, you know, promote Connor's cure, also kind of put them on the map as like a babyface tag team, but I'm not really optimistic about the run. I also have to say, like, I completely, of course, like respect, like, you know, the charity work that they do for whatever reasons that they have. I suppose, like, my whole thing is like I wish some of these segments, and this one in particular, felt I wanted to hear the voices of the characters themselves rather than like them strictly reading so much like what felt like a PR statement from the company. Like, I'm sure on .com afterwards you're going to probably get like a really nice interview from both Rhea and from Nikki about like what maybe the charity means to them, what the win means to them. But on TV, it just feels a little cold, in my opinion.
Alexa's playground. It's in the ring. Charlotte is brought out, and they note that Charlotte Flair doesn't play with dolls, but she got one last week. You missed Charlie's arrival last week, Way. Alexa runs down Charlotte being the fun police, making fun of her hocus pocus. The crowd starts chanting for Charlie, and Alexa has brought Charlie the doll, which last we saw was in the trash last week, but I guess Alexa played Jim Duggan and procured the doll from the trash.
Well, they clearly have multiple. They're selling them on the shop, right?
Are they all Charlie, though? The actual soul of Charlie is part of all of these dolls?
I mean, well, they established today that you can rip the doll, but I'm sure Charlie will still return.
Flair wants the old Alexa Bliss. All of this is a pathetic front for how fragile and delicate you are. Alexa, you are broken, and you hide behind this playground, the dolls, and that nasty black lipstick. This doll is more popular than you. And the only reason that Alexa was ever champion was because I was on SmackDown. I headlined WrestleMania 35. Now I'm playing with dolls on Raw. I'm the real deal, and I'm going to beat up a grown-ass woman that dresses like a kid. It's a desperate cry for help, Alexa, and I will beat the sense back into you. So Charlotte then gets the response from Alexa, who says, you may have won the most titles here. You've also lost the most titles. And who is Charlotte Flair without a title? Even she doesn't know the answer to that question. What would you say to these people without a title? And they all start wooing, and Alexa says, that's not even originally hers. So Charlotte fires back, let's not talk about originality, okay?
Mm-hmm. Great.
If that was just off the cuff, that was very fast.
Excellent.
On both of their feet, really, to react to the woos and then the line from Alexa to Charlotte.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I do not think they were drawing any attention to woos or Ric Flair's on purpose tonight. She hands her the doll, or said, I gave you the doll because even a self-centered bitch deserves happiness. And I don't need titles to stay relevant. And at Extreme Rules, you will call me champ. Flair says that Bliss will never find out who she is without the title because she's never losing it. I disagree. And they get into a big fight. And at the end, Flair takes Charlie and rips its head off, goes for Lily, but Alexa Bliss saves Lily's life.
Yes, that is right.
The meat of this, I thought like they did a very good job with some of their promos in here, and I give them some credit because they had to maneuver around all this doll bullshit that it's almost impossible to do a serious. This was like watching Britt Baker and Ruby Soho do what they did, but you have to work in these fake dolls, and one of you is a child. We have to put in all that bullshit on top of it.
I don't disagree there, but I also think that there is like a method to the dolls. Like they get a good reaction when you listen to this audience. I mean, this audience was cheering for Charlie, and they likely sell a good amount of these on .com. And you know, it's a level of, I think, color to the story that satisfies this particular audience that I think maybe an AEW audience would be, for them it would be a turnoff. But this was 90% of the times, I hate these Alexa Bliss segments. I hate these like Alexa's Playground segments. They're pointless. They're not creative at all. They're inauthentic. This totally caught me by surprise because Charlotte came in, I thought, with a great amount of heat, with a great amount of great lines. And when she asked for the old Alexa, I actually think you got some of it here because this was not just Alexa Bliss playing character. This was Alexa Bliss. Well, this was more of the
more grounded version, which I think is where you can make
what
this
Charlotte was
character
asking for.
work. Exactly.
Yeah, this was the Alexa Bliss of old, using great logic simply to cut down her opponent, and it was good back and forth between her and Charlotte, both of them with pretty scathing lines. Alexa digging pretty deep, talking about what the title means to Charlotte, and that it in fact, her without the title is somehow related to her insecurity. That's the level of I think thought that I haven't seen from these sort of Alexa promos in a long time since she's developed this character. So it turned into really good go home promo segment. And I thought the physicality on top of it all, even with the doll, was actually really good.
My trepidation is seeing this doll's head ripped off and what the consequence of that is going to be. And I just could not leave this segment without that nightmare. Also worth noting is that the pay-per-view Sunday is in Alexa's hometown on top of that. So, I mean, that should guarantee a defeat. It's just a question of whether she's humiliated on top of it.
Well, what method, with this doll's head falling off?
Maybe she's going to get it's going to look like Al Snow with head, and all the fans are going to be waving lilies in the crowd.
I think Charlotte mid-match should start coughing up like cotton.
Dude, you say that and I hesitate to even laugh because God, we're certainly going to get a wink, I think. Close up wink.
Oh, wink from the doll, the cutaway.
This is building to a mixed tag.
What? I suppose that would technically be mixed. Yeah, a human being and a doll. Yes.
Drake Maverick is running Operation 24/7 with R-Truth, Tozawa, and Gulak. Their grand plan is to capture Reggie with a net. So they send out Drew to bore him with one of your stories. Reggie gets out of the way, so the net falls on Gulak. Reggie then leaps over all the equipment and this photo backdrop and escapes the operation.
So now even Drake coming in is completely incompetent as a planner. He was supposed to be the person to actually finally round this group up into a successful team, but even he is totally his plan was terrible.
It was a bad plan. It didn't work. They plugged The Miz on Dancing with the Stars, which is interesting just because, number one, it's on a different network and it's head-to-head with Raw, but they want this guy to win, and they sent people to vote and literally said, vote for him over and over and over. I looked at this, you can vote up to 10 times, which kind of throws out the purpose of the voting system. Did you vote today? Not for The Miz.
Did not vote, sadly. I don't think I've ever seen a Dancing with the Stars, but I believe Nikki Bella's husband is still on the show. So
that's right, he was on too. So anyway, The Miz. It's just interesting because we have seen. I remember when Stacy Keibler was on Dancing with the Stars, and they never promoted it. And you're also talking about a time when they are very concerned, I think, about their numbers. But Miz is obviously they want to promote this.
Well, him doing well on the show ultimately is going to be really good for WWE because he is somebody who I don't necessarily see leaving this company, unlike maybe a Stacy Keibler or even a Nikki Bella. I'm pretty sure The Miz is going to come back. So it's promotion for the company.
Yeah, they also, unless I misheard, they also did not tell you to go watch this. They just told you to go vote. So
sure, yeah.
They're going to draw the line somewhere. Sheamus and Jeff Hardy. It took me the first 3 minutes of this match to realize that Damian Priest is the champion and not Sheamus, and I should have known that. Damian Priest is on commentary. So if Jeff Hardy wins, it's a triple threat on Sunday. This after he lost the title match last week, so that makes sense. Hardy did a poetry in motion off the steps and gets caught and dropped on the apron. Sheamus loses, he takes off his face mask, and then the dude's nose gets busted up.
I didn't notice that.
Oh, yeah, he had a bleeding nose. Yeah,
oh, wow.
Blood.
Poor
this
guy
can't catch a break. Actually, he literally can catch a break and has subsequent damage. Twist of Fate gets countered with a flying knee, and then Hardy ducks a brogue kick, hits a Twist of Fate, the Swanton lands on the knees, and as Sheamus lifts them for the white noise, it's countered with a sunset roll-up in 9 minutes and 4 seconds. So we've got Damian Priest, Sheamus, and Hardy on Sunday. Sheamus and Priest got into a big fight with Priest driven into the post and then Priest clotheslining him to the floor. Jeff Hardy just vanished after this match. It was as though the whole post match was about building this as a singles match, but we've got Hardy inserted in the mix on Sunday because I guess they want a second babyface. Okay.
Dude, I have no idea, man.
He's off that he's coming off that Karrion Kross momentum.
I guess so. Maybe they just wanted to freshen up this match, you know? Like, you've seen this guy against this guy, and you've seen this guy against this guy, but you've never seen all three together. At least not recently. I definitely had my third hour fatigue finally set in for this one. In the middle of, I would say, what's been a really good Raw, or at least far above average in terms of match quality. And not to say that this match was that bad, but like I feel like I've seen it so much, even though I might not have, that it's really hard for me to get all that interested in it. The match at the pay-per-view, I can't say is all that enticing, but of course the quality could be good. And ultimately, we're just here to like continue to rack up wins for Damian Priest, aren't we?
Pretty much. I mean, this is all about just pushing Damian Priest. There's just nothing wrong with that. Main event, Big E, Roman Reigns, and Bobby Lashley on 2 hours' notice. Big E charges the ring and starts going at it with Lashley before Reigns gets involved. We had multiple commercial breaks here. There was a Tower of Doom with Lashley taking the superplex, and then Big E gets pulled to the floor by Lashley and sent into the barricade. Lashley lifts up Roman Reigns for a delayed vertical, and I thought he was going to hit him with the jackhammer and keep this Goldberg thing going, but he just hit a regular vertical suplex. Big E returns, lays out Lashley, splashes both coming off the ropes. There's a Superman punch that gets ducked, and I mean, it's very evident that this audience is very much behind Big E. I think they certainly have something with Big E, and I think that the hope is that he gets a fair shake in this role, but he certainly did feel like a top guy in this mix. He did not feel out of place here. Yeah, no, he immediately feels like a top star. And the thing I hate about this is the fact that this gives credibility to their idea that you can give the guy a Money in the Bank and you can have him off TV. You can book him like shit even in some cases. Not that they've really done that with Big E, but they've really neglected him like with any airtime since he's won it. And it doesn't matter because the moment he wins the belt, like people will treat him like a big star. So I hate the fact that, I mean, I love the fact that he's getting, as great of a reaction he is, but I hate the fact that they're kind of proving us, it's proving them right. Yeah, they put him on Apollo cruise control for 6 months. Yes, they did. Lashley pulls Big E to the floor after he hit the big ending on Reigns and slams Big E through the desk. Lashley goes for a spear but gets hit with a Superman punch. Lashley then spears Reigns. Big E breaks it up. And the Hurt Lock gets stopped with a Superman punch. Reigns goes to the floor and gets speared off the apron. Big ending is hit to Reigns, but then Lashley comes in and beats the hell out of Big E with a chair, just over and over and over again. This was like Drew McIntyre and Shanky. And Lashley turns around, eats a spear, and Roman Reigns pins Lashley in 20 minutes and 11 seconds. And that was my only thing at the end of this, is that Big E and Bobby Lashley is your Raw direction, and it just felt like, well, we did this three-way. We've got to end it with a finish, and I just didn't want to see Lashley have to eat a pinfall here. But I didn't want to see any of these three. Exactly. Who would you have had lose? Well, that to me is in a bucket here. It's like, we want this match because of the appeal of doing it. We don't want to necessarily beat anyone, but they ultimately did pick one. Like, there was no great option here of beating any of these guys, unless you could argue, like, Big E pinning Lashley. I mean, they probably want to save that for the singles rematch. Yeah, I think so too. I think given the circumstances, I give them credit for the fact that they actually delivered us a finish here. Because I was actually probably 80% expecting this to be thrown out somehow with no conclusive ending. But the fact that we actually had a finish here, I think it needed to be Lashley to be the one to take the pinfall, because it shouldn't have been either of your champions. I thought this was an excellent main event. I would call it like
a WWE pay-per-view caliber main event, if that means anything these days. I thought it was really well booked. It made Big E not only look like he belonged with these two, but it made him look almost dominant in some cases against these two monster heels. He was given sort of like the credible win, if not for Bobby Lashley coming in with the steel chair and ruining it for him. The pace was very entertaining, a lot of big significant spots, and I thought it retained everybody's value like pretty well, leading to whatever matches and programs they have in the future.
Yeah, I thought that tonight did a very good job of trying to present Big E. It was tough because like your first Raw, both shows, because he was on SmackDown as well, both shows coming out of this, he's on the show with what everyone will agree is the prime champion in the company. So it becomes very difficult that you're already casting him alongside Reigns. But I think in both shows, they did a very good job of making Big E feel close to an equal to Roman Reigns. It wasn't like Reigns beat Big E here, which would have been just completely stupid.
They had Big E like visually pin Roman several times, again without cheating.
And it made it very much appear that like that will probably be the Survivor Series match unless they change course from what they laid out on Friday. My question to you, Wai, this is the card that we have for Sunday. They have made the Roman Reigns Finn Balor match, the Demon King Finn Balor, an Extreme Rules match. Alexa and Charlotte, Damian Priest, Sheamus and Jeff Hardy, Becky and Bianca Belair, the Usos against the Street Profits, and Liv Morgan versus Carmella. So you have 6 matches. Probably they'll add something. Do you just hold off on Big E and Lashley and just do it on TV? If that's so important now, let's save that for, like, is anyone watching the show on top of it that isn't already with this lineup? Your priority appears to be your TV. Save that match and build it up for a week. Or announce it midway through Raw next week and do it at the end of the show.
They could do that, or they could do any number of rematches from Extreme Rules, which is a possibility as well. But I think I would prefer that. I think you might upset some people who might say, well, how could you not put Big E on the pay-per-view? But the pay-per-views aren't, to me, big deals anymore. To me, like
this
Raw
feels like a nothing show on Sunday. This is our monthly obligation. And I mean, I think Reigns and Finn, it's going to be a great match, but I think there's no suspense there. And I
think Becky and Bianca is a pretty, decent, like pretty hyped match.
Outdo SummerSlam, yeah.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with this like Alexa Charlotte craziness. But beyond that, it's like, I can't really say I'm that attracted to much else here. I would actually say Bianca and Becky should be the main event.
I think they'll end with the Extreme Rules match, but it could be quite the make it. You could also, like, WWE is not averse to putting, like, they do the big first match and the big last match, and you could go either way if you wanted.
That's the only Extreme Rules match? Like, that's the only stipulation?
That's the only match with a stipulation on Extreme Rules as of now is Reigns and Balor. I mean, they did do the chair with Lashley tonight. So, I mean, you could do, I just think Big E and Lashley, like, you could throw it on this pay-per-view and you make it a hardcore match or another Extreme Rules match.
Why just do that, John, when you can do both? You could put it on this show, you could put it on TV, you could put it on SmackDown, you could put it on
here's
next
the other
week.
thing, is that you put that on Sunday, and what title match are you going on with last? It's probably not Big E. Like, why put Big E in that position where we're telling you it's not the important title match?
Well, more is more. You just want to, like, put everybody on every show.
That's all I'm getting at, Wai, is I want a 2-hour pay-per-view on Sunday. That's what I'm really trying to get at.
I do too.
That was Raw. I'm with you. I thought like this was a pretty good episode of Raw.
It was a good Raw. I'm gonna take the pretty off of it. I thought the wrestling was good. Yes, it was still 3 hours. You're gonna have to get past that. But if you actually,
I haven't got over it yet that the show is 3 hours. I'm not there yet. Maybe Fair. When it's been a decade next year, maybe that's when I will officially embrace. Is it next year? 2000? Yeah, next summer it will be 10 years of 3-hour Raws.
I gotta count the gray hairs on my head that I've developed in that time because I definitely owe it to some of these third hours. But it was a good edition of Raw. I thought with like pretty consistent, like good quality wrestling, good promo segments, surprisingly between Charlotte and Alexa. A pretty like big main event that you got on TV. So I actually would say that I enjoyed the show.
The real reason everyone is so happy, well, at least I'm going to say personally, selfishly, the reason I'm most happy Wai is back, he knows how to work the poll system. Dude, this thing, I couldn't. Okay, I was just getting angry.
Oh, man, I felt bad because, like, yeah, it's a bit weird. You got to, like, go to... I'll show you off air. You got to go to build poll and then, like, click the little gear icon. It's stupid.
Yeah, we didn't get along, me and the polls. 6.27 out of 10, which is... I cannot recall the last time Raw was so high, but it could have been higher last week. People won't know because of my handling of the poll system. So it could have been higher last week, but we were throwing that one out. Why don't you start us off? This will get you right back in the swing of things.
Jesus. Okay. Well, we have to start with my Scrabble, with my words with friend Brandon from New Jersey. We've got like probably a giant streak going, and he's fun to play with because he doesn't try at all. So like I'm on like a Goldberg run against Brandon from New Jersey right now with words with friends. But he says, "Gentlemen, good evening. John, good evening, and Wai, welcome back from excursion. I hope you are well." Oh God, Espero que hi. I'm not even gonna try. He wrote something in Spanish. Raw was a fun show. The 6-man before football was fun, and the main event was very interesting stuff. I wonder what's next. Meanderings. John and Wai, are Charlotte and Alexa Bliss having a Mercy's Playground match? Marcy's Playground match at Extreme Rules? Would you like me to sing the song? I was told I had the voice of a generation.
The last thing I ever want to hear Brandon sing is Sex and Candy, so no.
So what's a like an Alexa's Playground, Marcy's Playground, gotcha. Yeah. That's a great song. John and Wai, when Charlotte ripped the head off of Alexa dolls, what if cocaine came out of the head? John and Wai, I know Rampage does what it does, but don't you think 33 minutes of Matt Hardy is a little much? And also, I get it with, I think he says Kia del Sol.
Probably
I think he
referring
means
to his car.
Oh, okay, got it. And that was a Kia?
I don't think so.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is, okay, wow.
Okay, Brandon, I'm sorry. I got to be honest with Brandon. Okay, some are hits and some are misses.
Yeah,
Marcy's Playground, that was okay. You totally whiffed on the Charlotte Alexa cocaine joke, and the end was just you're better than this, Brandon.
You gotta at least save those for the later portion. You can't start off our feedback with that.
Brandon's not a Monday night guy.
No,
he doesn't usually pop up on these ones. Carl from Calgary. Big E shout out to his friend Brody Lee was a great moment, and he was visibly emotional. Good on WWE for letting their champion speak to that. I missed the reason for the Bloodline coming over to Raw, but it can only help the battle with the competition to do this on occasion. I find the Nikki Rhea Ripley storyline similar in some ways to Orton and Riddle. Yeah, it's identical to about 85 tag teams. Maybe too much of the odd couple tag teams. I think that we have to have legitimate matches with Reggie. This 24/7 title is just comedy, but not that funny. I think the Alexa Bliss angle has run its course. It's dragging down the title picture. Time to revert back or change character. It peaked when partnered with The Fiend.
I thought tonight was a good sign for the Alexa character. I mean, we actually got a genuine, like, human-voiced Alexa cutting a promo, like a very believable promo.
The non-human voice of the doll is coming on Sunday.
Okay, well, you take the bad with the good, I suppose. But I hope this is like a version of Alexa that is going to stay, at least. But I agree with a lot of the other points. Finally, we end off with Muggin, who said, a better than average Raw tonight. Bookending the show with Roman, Big E, and Lashley certainly helped. The main event was very strong, and neither Lashley nor Big E looked weak coming out of it. It avoided the trope of the opposing brand's champion pinning the Raw champion, and it would have been a bad look for Big E if he had taken a fall. Thankfully, that wasn't the case. He was presented as every bit Roman and Lashley's equal.
All right. Wai, welcome back.
Thank you, John. Glad to be back. And did you get a chance to vote today?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. Great. Well, we await the election results. Happy election day, everybody.
Have they not announced the winners?
Well, I know there are a lot of mail-in ballots, so I don't know if you I haven't checked also.
Well, then we will be following along. But yes, it was a federal election today in Canada, so I hope people got out there to vote.
Okay, we have projections if you care.
I don't know. Is it a spoiler? Is this going to upset anybody that's listening? Oh, I was going to watch all the election coverage next week. I saved CBC for the next night.
Well, Global News and CTV News, Okay, so CTV News is declaring a liberal minority government. So Justin Trudeau will stay as prime minister. Okay, there you go. Spoilers.
So to recap, everybody, here in Canada, we had our last federal election in 2019. 2 years later, we had another federal election where we went from a liberal minority government, and now 2 years later, we have a liberal minority government.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, but does this extend the term? Like, I don't really know much about this. What was the strategy behind this? Why did he do this?
Obviously, was very confident in.
In winning a majority?
Didn't work out so well, I guess. Doesn't matter. We'll do another election in a year, maybe 6 months. Why not?
Well, I suppose it was nice, waiting out in the hot sun for about an hour to go and vote in the midst of a pandemic. So
yeah, I got stuffed into this way too tiny room with all these people. I was like, this is wonderful in a pandemic. This seems like exactly where I should be at this moment, as I was stuck there. And then I was in a section where I got to bypass the line. So I was like, suckers, I'm out of here. All right. Well. And now we are out of here. So thanks everybody for listening. We're back Tuesday with Rewind Away. Way's going to enjoy being back in the swing of things by watching Nitro from 2000. There's nothing that is like a cold shower than Nitro from 2000. So I'm going to make a list of the top 75 angles from that night. And we're going to talk about the lead up to that Nitro and the fallout of that Nitro and everything in between.
Don't forget your scissors.
Literally the best of a whole night of 5,000 angles. They squeeze one in literally the last 10 seconds of the show. And I was just awesome. Like, this is just too much. It's amazing how many times you can watch this. And still I'm watching it like it's the first time, where I don't retain any of this.
Oh, it's going to be fun. Yes.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.